Estamos ao vivo. Boa noite, Brasil. Boa noite, Estados Unidos. A gente começa aqui o maio com uma agenda, vocês perceberam o videozinho com os nossos convidados. A gente já faz uma propagandinha hoje com King Foley. Já dá um bem-vindo. Welcome, King Foley.
Cheers. Hello, everybody. Hi.
Hello,
America. Hello.
Bem-vindo, Ivan. Bem-vindo, Ivan. O metal é isso aí, alegria. Vamos se alegrar que o mundo está precisando.
Muito bom, muito bom.
Tudo bem, Ivan?
Tudo certo. Se inscreva no canal, toque o sininho, já acompanha a gente aí, compartilha, comenta, segue a gente nas redes sociais e sejam muito bem-vindos.
E Christian,
querido conosco.
Isso aí. Christian, bem-vindo, Christian. Tudo bem?
Tranquilo. Tirando a chuva aqui, tá tudo bem.
Legal. O velho reclama até de chuva, né, cara? Se tá com sol também, ele reclama.
Mas sol tem que reclamar porque é vampiro, né, velho? A chuva é pra doer.
Mete bala aí.
Vamos lá. Então, para reforçar a agenda de maio, hoje com King Foley, do Disease, do October 31.
31st.
It's correct.
Yeah, 31.
31.
We do it in proper English on purpose. 31. October 31.
Rick Ross, dia 17 do DEF, dispensa apresentações. Meu querido Rick Ross postou aí o nosso vídeo. Um abraço pro Rick Ross. Mick Tucker, lenda do Tank, hoje no White Spirit. Daí a gente entra na veia New Wave of British Heavy Metal. E Ryan Waste também, a gente agradece ao Ryan, que também postou nas redes sociais dele aí a nossa agenda. E vamos lá. Kingsley, eu quero saber como estão as coisas, aliás, com o Deceased, com October 31, enfim, para ele nos atualizar aí, cara, que a gente acompanha o trabalho dele, como é que estão as coisas atualmente, após, né, não sei se acabou a pandemia, enfim, mas passou um pouco esse período turbulento, Christian, é um upgrade para nós aí, por favor.
Okay. George is asking about the situation with October 31 and Deceased, okay? And how is everything with this pandemic situation? Can you update us about the bands, things that you were doing?
Sure. Well, Deceased is actually currently writing our new record, which is called Children of the Morgue, which we'll be just beginning on now, but will be a little time. But we are focused on that as far as the band there. We are in our 37th, I guess 38th almost years together with Deceased. When the COVID hit, which was 35 years, we were supposed to do a big tour for celebrate 35 years, but of course COVID said, "Fuck your 35 years," so we stayed home. But we put out the Rotten to the Core 2, which was all our hardcore punk covers during the downtime there, as well as the Thrash Times at Ridgemont High, which was all thrash songs, including a Sacrifice song, which we know Jay is wearing up there in the corner. And we had a lot of fun with that. But now we're writing our new material, our new album, Children of the Morgue. We have a tour in America coming up with the band The Accused from Seattle, Washington, legendary band, a crossover band in June. We're doing that and playing a lot of stuff from Fearless Undead Machines this year because it's the 25th anniversary of that record as far as that. As far as October 31, our guitar player, Brian Hellstorm Williams, he's been going through a lot of health stuff. So we've been on downtime with that. He's trying to get everything together with his health, and it's a struggle for him. He's dealing with some serious issues right now. But we have a record we're trying to work on. It's been slow again because of the health. So it's kind of October's not in limbo, but right now it's very, very slow moving forward for that band. Most of my time right now is going to Deceased because of that. But we wish Brian well, of course, and we will be doing a new record with October at some point. Both these albums will be on Hell's Headbanger out of Ohio, United States.
Yeah. You.
Ok. Bom, falando ali do Deceased, tá? Eles tinham uma turnê de 35 anos planejada, né, antes de chegar o Covid, o que detonou toda a turnê. Eles estão trabalhando num álbum novo, né, que já está quase pronto. É o foco principal dele agora, é o Deceased. E eles vão fazer uma turnê de 37 anos da banda, já que é de 35 não rolou, né, por causa do Covid. Eles estão focados na nova turnê agora. Tem um monte de show agendado nos Estados Unidos, né? Então tá tudo indo para cima deste álbum novo, né? eles largaram um álbum de covers também, com algumas bandas de punk, thrash metal, né? E o October 31, né? Também ele tá um pouco parado, mas não tá no limbo, tá? Ele só tá... O guitarrista tá com problema de saúde, os caras estão tentando lidar com isso, né? Para ver o que vai ser feito, mas eles vão colocar ainda os 2 álbuns para rodar esse ano ainda, se tudo der certo. Mas o DC's já dá com turnê toda agendada, né, pela América, né, então já vai detonar tudo aí esses 2 anos parados, né? Então já esperamos aí 2 álbuns, né, vindos esse ano aí. Boa.
Good news, good news, good news.
Isso.
Vai lá, Ivan.
Queria perguntar para ele que é muito incomum tu ter baterista vocalista. Então eu queria perguntar para ele por que ele decidiu ser baterista vocalista ou sobrou para ele essa função de acumular 2 funções inusitadas?
Essa foi boa.
Okay, Ivan is asking, saying it's very difficult to find a drummer who's a singer at the same time. And did you choose it because you had no option, or you wanted to be a drummer and a singer at the same time?
When the band started Deceased back then, I originally played bass. We had a drummer. I was the bass player, but the drummer preferred his girlfriend over metal. And so we knew that we needed to have a drummer more than we needed to have a bass player. You have to have a beat to kind of get things started. So I traded away I had a very expensive, really nice set of bass gear. I traded away for a really shitty drum set, but it was something to play on. I had no experience at all. I just started playing, teaching myself. And they said, well, what are we going to do? Get a singer now? I said, no, I'm going to sing like Peter Criss. I was thinking Peter Criss back then, from Kiss. That was it back then. And Dan Beeler, of course, from Exciter. And I was like, we're going to do this. And the first, I would say the first 5 to 8 shows we ever did were parties. And in Virginia, where we come from, there was no metal scene as far as what we were playing. We were into every Slayer and Voivod and Merciful Fate and Hyrax. Nobody knew what that was back then. Slayer hadn't taken off yet, so nobody knew what that was. So we played a lot of parties with punk bands. And the first, I'd say 5 to 8 shows, I didn't even sing. We just went on stage and, well, I don't even want to call it a stage. We just played in people's living rooms or in their fields, beer keg parties, and just played this crazy music. We did a few originals of the time, and we played stuff by like Bathory, and so we did Sepulchral Voice from Sodom, and some Motorhead and Hyrax and Slayer. And I did not sing at the beginning just because I had to learn it. It took a few years as we went along, but yeah, I enjoyed doing it, and I got pretty good at it after a few years. I haven't done it since 2002. Now I've been the front man for the last 20 years because we decided, with October 31, my other band, I was actually originally just wanted to sing, and I wanted to have a real singer. When we started October 31, we were thinking along the lines of someone more like a Rick Emmett or something, a very melodic, good singer, or something like a Warlord type. And we couldn't find that person, so I ended up singing, and I'm no Rick Emmett or Warlord type, that's for sure. But and then I went on stage, and the very first time I ever sang in front of anybody, a crowd, was at Wacken. And it was 2000, and it was like, 20,000 people with October 31. And when I left it, I said, I'd love to do this in Deceased too. It'd be great to get out front. So we brought in a drummer. So ever since around 2002, I've been just singing out front, but I still write all the drums for all the records. I actually played drums on an EP right before I stopped singing and playing drums. And then I played drums again on Shrill Overdose from 2011. But I love it. Growing up, I'm a very hyperactive kind of guy, so I love being out front. It's probably best that I'm a little bit older now. I don't want to say I'm mellow, because I'm not. But in those days, 20, 30 years ago, to be out front might have been a bit much for the crowd, because I was stuck to the drums. I always tell people my butt cheeks were glued to the drum stool. I couldn't run around and stuff, and I wanted to so bad. But I loved it. It was fun. And yes, basically I wanted to sing too. We called it Throw Up Box when we first started. I just wanted to go as much as I could. I want to hear that back in Portuguese.
Yeah. Ok. So, bom, a escolha dele não foi bem, corriqueira. Ele era o baixista da banda na fase original, né? Mas o que aconteceu foi que ele teve que assumir a bateria porque o baterista deles preferiu a namorada do que a banda, né? Então, bye bye.
Normal.
Aí ele tinha um baixo que era bem caro, né, que ele pegou e trocou por um conjunto de bateria meio pobrinho assim, né? Mas foi o que ele usou para aprender a tocar bateria, né? Ele não começou tocando de cara bateria e vocal, né? Demorou um tempinho assim para ele conseguir se adequar, né, à bateria e o vocal, né? Os primeiros shows que eles fizeram, que não eram bem shows assim, era mais tocando para uma galera num salões assim. Então, tipo, demorou um pouquinho para ele se adequar, né? Eles tocavam bastante cover também, que a galera não conhecia na época ali, né? Tipo, gostavam de tocar de cover de Battery. Com o October 31 já foi um pouquinho diferente também, né? Ele queria um outro vocalista, né? Mas ele escreveu as linhas de bateria também, tudo. Tem essa coisa que ele fala que ele é bem imperativo, então ele ainda escreve as linhas de bateria, ele gosta muito de cantar também, né? Tipo, ele é bem imperativo nessa questão, você está sempre trabalhando. Então, esse lado, assim, do começo, assim, foi mais por conta do batera que deixou a banda e ele que se obrigou a pegar a função e vou fazer. Também ele era um pouco influenciado pelo Peter Criss também, que tocava e cantava, né? Então tem toda essa função também. E aquilo, né? Vamos botar a cara e fazer. E deu certo. Deu muito certo.
Muito certo.
E eu queria
Criou uma
aproveitar...
identidade.
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 Queria perguntar para ele sobre o October 31, que é uma banda de heavy metal classicaça.
Sim.
Como nasceu essa ideia de montar uma banda, né, que sai um pouco de uma proposta um pouco mais rápida e crua com o Deceased para uma pegada bem heavy tradicional com o October?
Jay is asking the idea of creating October 31st because it goes to a pretty different path, you know, like from death metal to heavy metal, you know, which is completely different. Yeah, not that different. But it's like heavy metal is not as heavy as Deceased. Okay.
Right. For me, basically how that happened was this was the mid 90s in America. It was all fucking grunge. It was all fucking Pantera and all this shit that I didn't care for. And we were still doing with Deceased. We were working on, at the time, we were working on Fearless Undead Machines, and we were still playing 80s thrash influenced with lots of styles that we grew up with, which was everything from Metal Church, and again, the Voivod, your Merciful Fates, your Sodoms, and we still loved Metal Church, or even stuff like Queensryche or Fate's Warning. We just loved heavy metal. We grew up with all of it. You know, I could name the deepest of bands I love so much from so many countries, and we still wanted to play that. Well, in America, that was a no-no. People were stopping saying the words heavy metal, and it was like everybody was suddenly playing rock and roll, and we weren't that band. So I got a call one day from a guy, which was a guitar player named Brian Williams, and he was trying to get a show with Deceased with his band at the time. And we started talking, and he was talking about the old days. And for some reason, we just started talking about 80s metal, like Savatage Sirens and things like that, and even stuff like Uriah Heep Abominog, which was, you know, an AOR kind of classic, my favorite record of all time. And we just started saying how nobody seemed to care about that anymore. Bands of the past weren't in. There was nothing heavy metal anymore. It was all Pantera and fucking, I don't know what those bands were, Static X and or whatever the fuck it was. I did White Zombie and Marilyn Manson, blech. And so I told him, I said, you know, we should get together and we should do something. I said, I want to do something like that. And I wanted, like I said before, I wanted to play drums and I wanted to get a singer, a good, real good singer, you know, that could do it. And he said, yeah, let's get together. I said, you know, well, I don't have a band, but I play drums. You play guitar. He lived 500 miles away from me. He lived about 8 hours away from me in North Carolina. I was in Virginia. And so we made a pact that we'd get together and we'd do a band. We'd try it. He came down with a bass player and a rhythm guitar player. And in a weekend, we wrote the Voyage to Infinity demo in 1995. And we did on that, we did Child of the Damned from Warlord. And we also were going to do like Rod of Iron from Lizzie Borden. And we were talking about Harder Than Steel from Jag Panzer. Just a classic American, mostly power metal, heavy metal of the 80s. And so we put that demo out and everybody loved it. We got a lot of stuff from Hellion Records in Germany with Jürgen Hegewald and stuff like that. They were blown away by this tape. And then I had people coming to me asking to put out a record. So it was crazy. It took off really fast. I mean, as I mentioned, October 31 actually played at Wacken before Deceased did. And Deceased by then had already been around 9-10 years when this happened, and it just got crazy. And we didn't play the first couple years because we kept looking for that singer. I sang on the demo, but I wasn't planning to be the longtime singer. And we did have a couple guys come in and sing for a little while. We had a guy that helped us out for a bit. He didn't play on anything, but he did play live, a really good singer. And then we had, if you're familiar with Twisted Tower Dire, we had Tony Taylor, who did those early vocals for them. He's passed away since, rest in peace, Tony. But he came out and sang too. So we did have some stuff like that. But I've always loved heavy metal. I've always loved melodic hard rock, things like that, YNT, all that stuff is part of what we do. And when we put out the Fire Awaits You album in 97, in America, there wasn't a lot of bands doing that. There was stuff like Skullview was a band that was kind of doing that stuff. Twisted Tower Dire was another band, but we were kind of building our little heavy metal, which, as we know, over in Europe especially, it never went away. But in America, it was very dead. I remember playing festivals. It was like October 31, Jag Panzer, Manila Road, Agent Steel, and there was like 50 people there. And these were big places with nobody in them. Raven would come through, 10 people. Anvil, 10 people. So it was low time, and we always loved it, respect it, and love heavy metal. So we wanted to bring it back and do that. And I've loved doing it ever since. It's a fun band.
Oh. Em português here. Bom, o October 31st começou ali na metade dos 90, ali, justamente porque nos Estados Unidos estava difícil de achar heavy metal. Né? Tava tudo sendo já virando grunge, aquelas bosta de Pantera da vida lá, com aquele trash meio estranho deles, né? Mas não tinha mais heavy metal clássico. Né? O que aconteceu foi que o Brian, né, que é o guitarrista, ligou para ele para tentar organizar um show do Deceased. E nesse meio tempo eles foram conversando, coisa e tal, e falando sobre a cena, coisa e tal, do que eles gostavam de heavy metal, coisa e tal. E ele falou que ele sempre quis fazer alguma coisa nesse estilo, mas que ele só queria tocar bateria. Ele queria um vocalista, estilo Warlord, assim, um vocalista mais puxado para heavy metal mesmo. Apesar dele ter feito os vocais na demo, né, ele queria um baterista, ele queria ser um baterista e queria um vocalista fixo na banda, que fosse um vocal melódico e bom de verdade mesmo, né? Tanto que eles conseguiram, depois de um tempo, né, contaram logo a demo e atraiu bastante atenção, assim, inclusive na Alemanha. Tanto que o October 31st conseguiu fazer show antes do Deceased, no Wacken, né? Tipo, deu essa coisa, assim. E o pessoal gostou bastante, assim, né? Então, tipo, é mais para trazer de volta. Ele sempre foi ligado com...
Um resgate.
É um resgate. Então, ele sempre foi ligado com heavy metal, cresceu ouvindo heavy metal melódico, essas coisas assim. Então, é uma coisa que eles queriam, né, fazer. Então, quando eles conseguiram colocar isso, né, o Brian mora na Carolina do Norte, ele na Virgínia, né, tá 8 horas de viagem, já apareceu com um baixista, né, guitarrista, já conseguiram botar, daí eles fizeram uma demo, mandaram a demo para a Alemanha, ficaram, né, acharam foda pra cacete, e vamos fazer um álbum. Eles fizeram esse álbum. Ele comenta também, quando eles fizeram um show também, não tinha mais banda nesse estilo nos Estados Unidos, né? Tava só ainda aquela coisa grunge. E eles fizeram vários shows com bandas grandes, mas o público tava pequeno. Tinha 50 pessoas, né? Porque tava difícil, já não existia mais a cena heavy metal dentro dos Estados Unidos, assim. O álbum teve uma baita de uma aceitação, assim. Foi um álbum muito bem feito, né? Teve a sua repercussão, mas o público...
a gente recomenda, Christian, um parêntese, recomenda, né, o pessoal aí tem 5 discos que vão agradar em cheio os fãs de heavy metal tradicional. Procurem conhecer.
E aquela época ali também, só salientando, como ele falou, e como a gente sabe, né, a coisa estava confusa dentro dos Estados Unidos, porque a cena heavy metal estava afundando mesmo. As gravadoras não queriam mais banda de heavy metal. Então, tipo,
beleza.
Conseguiram resgatar isso e conseguiram resgatar de uma maneira muito boa.
Muito bom. E esse tipo de atitude que falta, muitas vezes o pessoal reclama, né? E não faz as coisas, né?
Eles conseguiram trazer o heavy metal de volta sem soar alguma coisa new, né? Eu vou até falar isso. Like, one thing that I'm saying in Portuguese here is that October 31 succeeded in bringing back the old heavy metal without sounding new metal, you know, because even the old heavy metal bands, they have to adapt to this new technology, this new kind of sound, you know, like to sound more commercial, I'll say that, you know, like, and October 31st kept the roots of the old metal alive.
That's exactly what we went for. That's the personality of the band. I wanted to have the old sound with actually memorable, catchy songs. I wanted to have a hell of a guitar player, which Brian Hellstorm Williams is, and just a good band and a good live show. But yes, we wanted to have the sound of the 80s. We didn't want to have the what am I trying to say? We didn't want to come off as contrived. We wanted to sound like the old days. When we recorded the all tribute Metal Massacre CD, October 31, Metal Massacre 31, when we did that, we were paying, you know, homage to that stuff because that's the era of stuff that this band was based around. Again, we grew up on records like that. We grew up on, you know, stuff like Sacred Blade or, you know, just these deeper cut records, Liege Lord, et cetera, stuff like that. A lot of these newer bands, they Google the bands. A lot of these younger kids, they Google it. I know you got to start somewhere, but they Google these bands and then they try to rip them off. They try to basically steal riffs or just ideas of complete songs, and you see that a lot. You know, at least I do. I'm a deep diver. I've had thousands upon thousands of records. We could sit here and go through them all, but what we wanted to make sure we did was be genuine in what we did. And we just went out there and did our thing. We play festivals and I see a lot of these bands. Yes, they sound like heavy metal, but it sounds like modern old school, if that makes sense, you know, and we're old school.
Yeah.
And old.
Ok, só falando ali sobre o October 31, né? Ele fala que a questão foi justamente essa, trazer, ele não queria que a banda soasse como uma banda de heavy metal nova, ele queria fazer a sonoridade do que ele cresceu ouvindo, de volta para os 80, aquela sonoridade que tinha que ter. Ele também fala que tem muita banda nova, que elas cresceram ouvindo bandas antigas, mas elas roubam riffs, elas tentam soar de acordo, mas não é uma coisa natural, né? O October 31, eles trabalharam para ser uma coisa mais genuína, né? Tem mais de 400 álbuns ali que eles contam, coisa e tal, de várias bandas antigas, então, né, não precisa ficar roubando riff, ele está imerso naquela época ali. Já as bandas novas, né, a gente chama de tomba tribo, assim, elas não são originais, elas são meio que uma cópia e, né, e tentam soar replicando uma coisa antiga de uma maneira nova, que não soa legal, assim, né?
Tanto é que o último álbum deles ali, do October 39, é um álbum de covers. Eles, ali se tu pegar as bandas ali, dá para perceber bem as influências que eles têm.
Sim, ele falou a respeito ali, que quando eles lançaram esse álbum, o pessoal gostou bastante também disso.
Isso. Dos 4 álbuns do October 39 ali, qual que ele indicaria, digamos, para um cartão de visita, para alguém conhecer a banda, aqui no Brasil, por exemplo?
Okay, if I was asking you from the 4 albums that October 31, sorry, has, which one would you indicate as your visit card? Okay, like you have to listen to this album. Which one would you say?
Oh, that's weird. I think the songs are best on the first one, The Fire Awaits You, but I don't like the singing at all, and I don't like the production. But most people think that's our best one. Personally, I think our best one is No Survivors, which is from 2005. It's a little bit more aggressive. It's some people think it's almost thrashy, that one, and I guess it is. We cover an Overkill song on there. We do Wrecking Crew on there, but if I had to pick a favorite, it would probably be that one. But I mean, all of them have their time. We try to give a little bit of each era every time we do something. We don't want to keep repeating ourselves either. We still want to be a band and write good songs. But if someone asked me my favorite, I would say No Survivors.
Que é o melhor, né? Mas ele não gosta muito da produção. Ele praticamente acha o No Survivors melhor, né? É o favorito dele, né? Ele gosta mais, assim, faz a produção também, assim. Mas ele fala que os álbuns, eles tentam ser bem genuínos entre eles, né? São diferentes, realmente, né? Nenhum álbum ali é igual ao outro. O primeiro, que a galera gosta bastante, assim, ele só não gosta muito da produção dele. Podia ter uma produção melhor, né? Mas ele é bem satisfeito, assim, com essa genuidade da banda, assim, né? Tipo, ela é única em cada álbum e ela ainda mantém aquela aura dos anos 80 viva ainda. Então tem bastante isso.
O Christian, eu quero perguntar uma coisa bem particular, que há muito tempo eu tenho uma impressão que o Deceased é daquelas bandas que demoraram para lançar o seu debut, como Massacre, né? Tem um histórico assim de 5 anos, né? O debut do Deceased é de 91, mas as demos já são de 1986, se não falha a memória. Queria perguntar para o Kim o que motivou essa demora, né? A banda já estava em atividade aí com várias demos. O Death também foi assim, né? O Massacre. O que demorou até o debut aí do Deceased, que foi o meu álbum preferido, Luck of the Cops, que foi em 91. É uma dúvida aí que faz muito tempo que eu tenho.
Okay, George is asking about the delay to release the first album, okay, because you had the demos back there in the 80s, okay, the same happened to Massacre too. They had demos in the 80s, but it took more than 5 years to appear first album. And he's asking about this, like, why this delay to get the first album?
Well, I didn't think it was too much of a delay. We actually did demos in 86. We did demos in 88, and we did a demo in 89. We signed to Relapse in 90, and we recorded the album in 90. It came out in 91, so it wasn't that much of a delay as far as that. As far as it taking just a year plus, Relapse was a new label. We were, as most people know, we were the first band to sign to Relapse Records, and we were just waiting for them to basically get settled in where they were going to set up fort for the entire record company and go from there. And basically we in the meantime, they put out Gut Wrench 7-inch with to give a little taste of the band to the world. And then they put Luck of the Corpse out once they had enough money to be able to press the CD.
Bom, ele não acha que demorou tanto tempo, tá? Porque foram 3 demos ali, né? Uma de 86, outra de 88, e depois em 90 eles já gravaram o álbum e a Relapse lançou o álbum logo em 91. Né? Então, para ele não foi uma demora tão grande assim, né? Eles não conseguiram naquela época botar um CD porque já era muita grana, mas eles conseguiram num tempo hábil assim lançar o primeiro álbum para eles. Não foi uma demora tão grande assim, né? Foi quase 5 anos. Então, tu tem ali, né, desde que tu assina o contrato, 1 ano, às vezes a 2 anos, para lançarem, né, um álbum. Então, eles conseguiram lançar esse álbum bem rápido até, porque ele foi feito em 90 e foi lançado em 91. Então, isso não é uma demora. A gente acha que é, mas não é tanto, não.
Naquela época, não, mas tem bandas que são bastante inovadoras que se prejudicaram com isso, né? Em termos de aparecer para o público, só foi nesse sentido.
Sim. Mas ali eles já tinham um público já.
Christian, antes de passar para o Ivan, um parêntese, consta aí em alguns sites de pesquisa na internet que o objetivo da banda foi superar o Slayer. Isso faz sentido ou é fofoca da internet?
Okay, George is asking about some internet gossip that the main reason you created the season was to overcome Slayer.
Well, yeah. I mean, we came out. We wanted to be the fastest. We wanted to be the fastest band, which Slayer was pretty much at the time. We wanted to be the weirdest, which Voivod was at the time. We wanted to be crazy as shit. We were teenagers. We were fucked up. We wanted to have a blast. We were nuts. And we still are, but we're just older. We love it. I mean, I got to out-thrash Slayer. That was on the flyer in 85. We will out-thrash Slayer.
Ok. Bom, ele fala ali que sim, é verdade, que eles eram loucos quando eram velhos, queriam ser mais rápido que o Slayer, que eles são tão loucos quanto o Voivod. Eles ainda são loucos, hein? São velhos, né? São tão mais velhos, na verdade. Então, tem todo esse quesito assim, eles queriam ser uma banda rápida e agressiva, que nem o Slayer, e, né? Aquilo ali serviu para chamar bastante atenção também.
Vai lá, Ivan. Muito bom, muito bom.
É muito bom. Falando em influências, ele cita 3 vocalistas que influenciaram ele, assim.
Ivan is asking about your influences as a singer, okay? And he asked you to quote 3 singers that influenced you.
As the music of Deceased, one of my earliest influences was Wendy O. Williams from the Plasmatics, especially Coup d'etat, which is one of the most vicious vocals ever. I love the screams from Stacy Sheepdog on the early Razor, the screams of Razor, the early stuff, the screams. And I would say for something crazy back then, I would say Snake from Voivod, especially the first two. Warren Payne and Roar were really, I must also mention Kronos from Venom, because one thing I've always wanted to do to this day is with me and the death metal, the vocals of death metal, people call it barking dog, a lot of times, but I want the words always to be understood. And that's one thing about Kronos. Whenever he sang, he was heavy, but you heard and you could understand his pronunciation of his words. That was important. And I love the screams again of Sheepdog, and I love the aggressiveness of Wendy O. Williams in her day. And then of course, Snake, because he was just so odd. It was very odd. So you put all that in a ball and shake it up. And that's how I got to that. Those were the ones that influenced me as far as Deceased vocals.
Great. Ok, das influências ali, ele fala bastante da Andy Williams, né? Para quem conhece Plasmatic, sabe que a mulher é lenda no meio, né? Foi uma das vocalistas mais agressivas que teve, né? Não tem como negar, né? Então, o Destruction tocava coverzinho lá, para quem não sabe. O nosso querido vocalista do Voivod, né? Todo mundo conhece, que é mais agressivo que qualquer coisa. E o Kronos, né? Que foi para ele uma das maiores influências, porque o que acontece, né? Naquela época todo mundo dizia que o vocal de death metal era cachorro latim, né? Tu não entendia porra nenhuma. Ele gostava bastante do Kronos, porque o Kronos ele tinha agressividade, tinha a raiva, mas tu conseguia entender, dava para compreender o que o Kronos cantava com aquela raiva toda dele. Então, ele se preocupava em querer cantar e que as pessoas entendessem aquilo que ele estava cantando também, da mesma maneira que o Kronos. Então, o Kronos acaba também sendo uma influência bem grande para esse estilo de vocal dele, né? Que desça para te conseguir ouvir o que o cara está cantando, né? A Andy Williams também, ela tinha uma voz grave, mas tu conseguia ouvir também, assim, né? Então, tipo, a opção é essa, né? Ele juntou três coisas e fez o vocal dele. Solar, como tem que solar.
E o Ivan, ontem, na nossa prévia, aqui no nosso teaser, já tinha dado um spoiler sobre essa influência.
Nunca ouviu Venom.
Pelo menos não faz que nem o Corton, né? Fala pra ele que o Corton disse que nunca ouviu Venom.
We were talking about Battery because Corton said he had never listened to Venom when they released the first Battery.
Yeah, sure.
Raise the Dead is just a coincidence, you know. It's like names.
Yeah, it never happened.
Yeah, Celtic Battery too. It's like just that main riff. Yeah, it's like. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Christian, perguntar para ele sobre o Deceased tem aí uma longa discografia, né, que começa no início dos anos 90, vai passando pelo ano 2000, enfim, o último aí do ano passado. Como ele consegue fazer estabelecer um paralelo entre aquele Deceased lá de 91 com o de hoje? A gente percebeu uma evolução muito grande, né, nesse período aí, nessas décadas. A banda foi lapidando o seu som, mas sempre com o pé ali na agressividade. Como é que ele consegue enxergar a banda nessas 3 décadas aí, 90, 2000, né? Mais ou menos nessa linha aí.
Okay, George is asking about the evolution of the band and how you see the band from the 90s until now, to the last album, okay? The way that you grew up, musically speaking, you know, but without losing all the aggression and the brutality of the band, because the band evolved, obviously, but it didn't evolve as lots of other bands that evolve and somehow they lose their identity, you know, like it's more common than anything to evolve and then become another band. It didn't happen to Deceased, you know, it's like Deceased because you follow 30 years band, but still like you can see like an evolution in a band. How do you see this? How do you see this evolution? And how do you say like you still kept the inner rage of the band, you know, like the identity of the band is still there. It sounds like Deceased.
Right. Well, a natural evolution for us, for sure. When we first started out, there was 4 of us. I played drums and sang. We did the first demo in '86. I'd only been playing drums about a year and a half at that point. So I wasn't a very good drummer. Not that I think I ever was a great drummer, but I was not very good then. And Mark Adams, the one guitar player, he'd been playing for a while. He was pretty good on guitar. And Doug had started playing guitar when I started playing drums. He was picking up very quick and learning stuff very well. So they were ahead of the game. And our bass player, Rob, on the first demo, he was just a part-time bass player friend. So we were just young and learning our craft as we went on. And there was things we wanted to do from day one on the demos, better solos, harmonies, things like that. But we weren't at the time, we weren't technically proficient enough to do that. So as we went on and did our demos, we thought we improved with each demo. We didn't rush too. We tried to write the best songs we could in 86, 88, and 89, those demos. By the time we did our first album, we'd already had, we had 25 songs, and then we wrote 5 new ones for the records. We had 30 songs to choose from before we even had Luck of the Corpse. So when we got to Luck of the Corpse, we did that. And at the time, that was 1990. The speed was really in. I'm a speed freak still to this day. I love fast music and aggression and all that. So I played the drums as fast as I possibly could on that record. And we had very little money, and we just had to do what we had to do. And we got the record out, and it is what it is. Some people, call it a classic and stuff. I guess for the time, we appreciate that. Whether it is or isn't, that's up for everybody's ears. And as we moved into 13 Frightened Souls, we brought in Mike Smith on guitar because Doug stepped down from playing. And Mike was from a little bit of a different school than us. He was pretty much the same style of guy, but we didn't know him so much. So we were almost like we were starting over again. And you're talking 1992. And so we put out that EP just as a taster of what we were going to do. And then by the time we got to Blueprints in 95, we didn't know where we wanted to go. We first started writing that record. We were going to write 20 songs that were 2 minutes each. That's what we thought about. But as we went on with that record, we decided to make it this crazy fucked up record, the Blueprints for Madness. So we wanted to go that route. What changed a lot of it for stuff is when we finally got our practice space, which was my house in 1997, when we were going to go in and 96, I should say, when we started writing for Fearless on Dead Machines. And Mike Smith and me got to practice early before most of the other 2 guys, Les and Mark. And we just started writing stuff. And Mike's like, this is what's coming out of me, this heavy metal stuff, this thing. And the first thing he had written for that was The Silent Creature, which obviously the very first riff is very similar to Wasted Years from Iron Maiden to this day. And I always thought that the main riff of the song reminded me of the 7 Gates of Hell from Venom. So I could tell that we were now putting more of our heavy metal influences in, but without forgetting our love for Cryptic Slaughter or Repulsion or Autopsy too, which was, that's all part of it too. But you throw that in a hybrid with a band that also loves, Motorhead, Another Perfect Day, and Queensryche, Rage for Order, and then Voivod, Nothing Face. It's a lot of different stuff. Then you take outside influences. We grew up with Kiss. We grew up with Saxon, Anvil. And this all becomes a hybrid of this stuff. It's all in our heart, every bit of it. And we don't put ourselves in a corner. It's not like, well, we're this quote-unquote death metal band, and you've got to go grr, 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 grr all day long, because that's not what we wanted to do. We wanted to write the best songs we could every time, and we never did. To this day, it's 2022, many years later, 25 years since Fearless, we don't write what I call rent records. We don't just, okay, let's write 8 new songs and throw it out and hopefully we'll make $1. It's never been that way through any of the eras. Fearless, Supernatural Addiction, the Mourner's Veil, the EP we did after that, As the Weird Travel On, which was Mark's last album. Then we brought in Shane on guitar, big Voivod guy, and he had his little bit of a punk rock influence too. So it's all been there. But one thing, me being the one guy that's played on everything we've ever did for 37 years now, plus maybe even more than that, is it will never be half-assed. I promise you that. We will always give 110%. There will never be any, however long it takes to get it right, it will be. You've seen some longer time between albums as time goes on. Like our last record was Ghostly White. That's a few years old already. Before that, it was 2011. So there was a 7-year break there. But you write the best songs you can. You want it to be as good as it can be. And that's what Deceased is about. And all this adding, we're getting older. You learn from your mistakes. You start putting better guitar solos down, better harmonies, you hopefully become better, songwriters, from the lyrics to the playing to the arrangements, all that. And that's just dedication and sincerity, and that's one thing I will speak for Deceased, for everybody that's ever been in this band, is it's a 110% dedication. There's no phoning it in, ever.
Okay, I'll try to give a short version.
I'm going to listen to this. And go.
Yeah, there we go. Ok. Bom, ele fala que essa evolução aconteceu naturalmente, tá? Veio com o tempo. Eles já tinham ali 4 demos, mais de 20 músicas quando eles foram compor o primeiro álbum, né? Então já tinha coisa ali para trabalhar bastante. Ele fala que ele não era um dos melhores músicos, né? Mas eles tentaram, né? Eles deram bastante de si para fazer a coisa mais honesta possível, né? Eles tinham essa coisa assim de não fazer música, né? Vamos pegar e fazer 8, 10 músicas aí para ganhar uns dólares em cima. Não, o negócio foi para ser o mais natural possível. E a evolução também veio vindo com o tempo, né? Então, tipo, tem uma diferença entre alguns álbuns ali que demorou um pouquinho mais, mas é porque eles queriam solos melhores, eles queriam ter arranjos melhores, as letras tinham que ser boas. Então, isso pega um pouco de tempo também para te conseguir fazer isso de uma maneira mais concisa. Então, tipo, a banda evoluiu, né, dentro desses 30 anos, de uma maneira orgânica, natural, dentro das influências que eles têm juntos também. Tem influência de heavy metal, tem influência de outras coisas dentro, que elas, né, estão ali presentes, sempre estiveram presentes, mas o Deceased sempre manteve a identidade dele. Vai sempre, o Deceased vai sempre soar como o Deceased. Ele vai evoluir, porque isso é natural. Quando tu começa a evoluir como músico, né, tu pode às vezes se perder e perder essa característica. O Deceased não, ele manteve a característica original dele, tá ali. A banda evoluiu um monte, mas evoluiu organicamente, de uma maneira híbrida, como tem que ser. Então, isso é uma coisa que ele faz questão de dizer, que a banda vai sempre, né, procurar evoluir, mas sempre manter aquela raiz thrash, punk, aquela coisa do heavy metal natural dentro da banda, que é o que eles cresceram ouvindo, que é o som que eles gostam de ouvir e o que eles gostam de tocar. Então, a banda não vai ser uma banda que vai mudar drasticamente de estilo ou drasticamente de som, né? Vai manter aquela coisa assim, sabe, que é um Deceased. Tá mais evoluído que o outro, mas ainda é o Deceased. Né?
É perfeito.
Então, isso é o mais importante para ele dentro da carreira toda, assim, né? Tu pega, assim, como ele falou, é uma evolução natural e é uma evolução que eles gostam que seja natural, não é forçado. É uma coisa que tu tem que te obrigar a fazer. Não, é uma coisa que aconteceu com o tempo. Tu tem ali 30 anos, tem 20 anos, eles sempre tem bastante música para trabalhar.
Eu queria perguntar para ele, o Deceased é uma banda já que lançou vários álbuns, o October 31 também, mas nenhum álbum deles tem um lançamento nacional aqui no Brasil. Eles chegam aqui como importados.
Sim.
Ele tem algum contato, alguma coisa, alguma ideia de talvez entrar em contato com algum selo do Brasil para lançar esses álbuns, já que o Deceased tem um nome muito forte aqui no Brasil?
Okay. Well, Ivan is asking about the releases in Brazil, because we don't have anything released in Brazil from Deceased or October 31, okay? And the band is a cult band in Brazil. Lots of people know the band. The band has a huge name here in Brazil, but unfortunately for us, we have to import CDs or find someone who brings the CD here because it's very difficult to get some material. And that's a little bit frustrating because you have to listen to MP3, or old tapes as we grow up listening to, like the first time I listened to the Deceased was a tape that I got from a friend of mine from São Paulo, I think. I don't remember. But it was like a tape, like not the original things. Like, I think I had one LP, I think the first one, but it was imported too, because we never had anything released here. So Ivan is asking if you know someone, or if you intend to have anything released in Brazil, if you're in touch with any label here to have anything released in Brazil.
Yes, it's been very, very little stuff. I think one guy released a tape or something, like a demo or something, 100 copies or something. Nothing of the professional releases, none of it. I've seen a few bootlegs now and then, which is fine. I wish they were there for you guys, because I cannot stand having to order stuff, especially postage rates and bullshit like that. That's bullshit. It should all be over there Relapse used to promise us they were going to give distribution over there and all this. And one of the reasons we're not on Relapse is things like that. But with Hell's Headbangers, they, you know, again, they don't have it either. It's something I should look more into. It's also something we need to do is we need to come to, you know, Brazil and play. We need to come play many shows. We have friends now and then. You know, they drink a few beers. Yeah, man, we're going to bring Deceased to Brazil. And then they pass out. And that's as far as it goes there. But we need to come play and we need to work that out. That's something I would love to do for sure, because I want the music to be available all over the world. Because there's bands I love from all over the world too, that I used to have to, Italian bands and stuff like Bulldozer early on. I used to try to find those things from Italy and fucking nightmares. Even with Brazil back in the day, I used to have a trader. He would send me all the Cogmello records and things like that, you know, the Warfare Noises and Mutilator, Immortal Force. And it was a pain in the ass. Yeah, it was a pain in the ass because, you know, it's not cheap. It's not. But I promise I'm going to look into that. And I think it's time to get all the old records back over there, you know, in CD and vinyl format, you know, properly. And then come over there and play some shows, because I would love to. I've had many, many pen pals for many, many years from overseas, you know, everything from Brazil to Peru to El Salvador and stuff. They ask all the time, and I would love to come play all those places. We've been to Peru once, but we need to come to Brazil, and we will work on that, I promise.
I'm going to talk to the guys here in Portuguese. Bom, ele fala que teve uma demo lançada aqui, mas não foi oficial, né? Foi tipo aquelas coisas de troca mesmo, infelizmente, né? Foi umas 100 cópias só, não me engano, que foram lançadas aqui, né? Então, pouca gente conhece, pouca gente teve acesso, né? Ele sabe que tem alguns bootlegs lançados aqui no Brasil também, né? Que caem aqui, coisa e tal. Que tem um seu lado bom, às vezes, né? Porque ajuda a manter o nome da banda, mas o problema é a Relapse, que nunca lançou nada aqui, né? Eles prometeram que iam lançar, mas nunca lançaram. É que toda essa briga com a gravadora de lançar alguma coisa aqui, mas não faz.
Sim.
Ele tá procurando ver isso, ele também quer vir com o Deceased para o Brasil, o October 31 também, para tocar aqui, porque daí fica mais fácil também para trazer material, para a galera ver. Ele tá nos planos, né, ter material do Deceased no Brasil, lançado no Brasil. Tá tentando ver isso direitinho. Né? O problema é que depende mais da gravadora do que deles, mas já tá mais do que na hora, né, depois de 30 anos da banda ter alguém que olhe e diga assim, ó, vamos lançar o Deceased no Brasil. Mas eles também têm que vir para cá tocar também, né? Porque isso facilita mais ainda de alguém apostar, né, na banda e lançar, ó, os caras vieram tocar aqui, tem público, vamos lançar os CDs dos caras aqui. Então tem esse lado também. Ele fala que era bem, falei com ele que era bem difícil na época também de conseguir alguma coisa, conseguir fita, ele também fala que era bem difícil na época conseguir Bulldozer e várias coisas da Itália, assim como do Brasil também, que ele tinha um contato com um cara que mandava todos os lançamentos da Cogumelo para ele também, que eram bem caros na época, né? Ainda são.
Piorou.
Ainda mais com frete. Ainda mais com esse frete do cão.
Temos uma da audiência aí, meu amigo.
Tem uma aqui? Okay, we have a question from the audience for here, okay? What came first into your life, okay? Obsession by metal or the fascination by horror?
I see it, yes, Gus Leal. Cheers to Gus Leal. Thanks for the support. I saw you earlier talking about 666 times with Nuclear Exorcist. Thank you. We love you for that, buddy. I guess it would be horror, because heavy metal to me, you know, Judas Priest and all that stuff, late 70s, 80 for me. I loved heavy music, Van Halen, Ted Nugent, Heart, all that stuff, Frank Marino of the late 70s, but I wouldn't call that metal, unfortunately. But I was watching horror movies. My mother was obsessed with horror movies and took me to all of them as a kid. I could burn offerings in the theater in 1976. Saw all those movies back in the day, everything, all the drive-in movies, Blood Beach, Alligator, all that stuff. So I loved it, and I loved my music. Heavy metal came to me in about, like I said, late 70s, earliest of 80s. Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, you know, the usual stuff for most of us. I'm 53, I'll be 54 in July. That's the stuff I grew up with too. Black Sabbath, especially the Dio stuff. That's the one I sold my soul to rock and roll with, no pun intended. But yeah, I love them both. They're very important to me, and they both work together. And that's one of the reasons we called the band. I came up with the name Deceased, was because I wanted to do something horror based inside of the heavy metal, death metal world. Thanks for that, Gus. Cheers to you, buddy.
Yeah. Okay. falando em português ali, ele fala que o que veio primeiro para ele, né, foi a fascinação do horror, até porque a mãe dele era fanática por filme de terror e levava ele para tudo que é drive-in para ver filme de terror. Eu queria ter uma mãe assim, velho. Então, primeiro veio essa, depois mais tarde veio essa fascinação pelo metal, assim, né? O Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, quando ele, né, realmente vendeu assim. O nome do Deceased vem dessa coisa, assim, dessa fascinação do horror ligada com metal também, né? Foi o que fez que ele fizesse a banda mesmo, assim.
Muito bom. E para encerrar, ô Cristian, a gente está vendo que CDs ele tem bastante aí atrás, né? A pergunta é, ainda ele curte LPs?
Ok. George is saying that we can have that you have lots of CDs in the background there, and he is asking if you still collect vinyl.
Oh, you're talking about over there. Those are actually DVDs.
DVDs, okay.
And this here is a sheep, you fuck. It was a birthday gift. It was one of the plastic sheep. These are DVDs. I have. This is my living room. In here, I have thousands and thousands of DVDs, mostly horror. This is what you're seeing here. If I went around the room, it's pretty crazy. Yes, I've had as much as up to 18,000 LPs in my day. I've had up to 18,000 CDs. I still have about at my most I had about 6,000, probably about 2,500 these days as far as that left. But I have so much stuff, tons of stuff on tape, and like all you guys, things everywhere. Yes, I love music. Music is life. I don't drink or any of that kind of shit. So all my money that I do get, my little bit of income, my allowance is goes to that. Yeah, I'll show you a little bit here. See, can you see a little bit better? DVDs. We go down. It keeps going and going. And there's the sheep. There's the sheep for all you that love sheep.
Yeah.
The birthday gift. But yes, I love music. I still love to have it. I've just over the years, it's been so much room, taking up room. It's like when you had all the VHS tapes growing up and then you moved to DVD because the tapes took up so much room. So yeah, when I got it on record, I sometimes moved it to CD or vice versa.
Bom, vocês viram ali, ele fala que ali atrás é os DVDs dele, tá? Ele tem uma coleção gigante de DVD, né? Ele coleciona LPs, né? Mais de 8 mil. Né? Coleçãozinha pequena. Tem uns 6 mil CDs também, né? Tá ali, né? Mas ele tem... Esse aí é mais a sala de estar dele, tá? Isso aí é onde fica mais os DVDs, tá? Ele é um colecionador fanático de terror, assim. E ele adora música, né? Ama música, faz parte da vida dele, e tem vários LPs também. Os CDs, né, estão ali também por uma questão de logística de espaço também, né? Tipo, ele trocou as fitas por DVD, porque ocupam menos espaço, né? Tu tem toda essa questão de logística de espaço, né? Uma fitinha VHS ocupa um espaço do cão, né? Para colocar 3 DVD no lugar de uma ali.
Isso aí.
Tem toda essa logística, assim. Mas ele ainda continua e curte bastante o LP. A gente já estava conversando com ele sobre isso também, né? A gente estava falando sobre os LPs, essa coisa toda. E eu acho que, para finalizar, vamos só perguntar sobre os shows que tem planejado aí de tour do Deceased e do October, né? Posso? George?
Vai lá, meu amigo.
Okay, so it's going to be the last question, okay? So it's like, how are the plans after COVID for the Deceased concerts, okay? We really expect one day to see Deceased playing in Brazil.
Yes, we will. That will happen. It has to, and it will. If anybody listening to this or reading this or whatever can help in any way, yes, we would love to do that. We have plans. We've done 2 tours overseas. We've been into Germany and Czech Republic and Belgium and places like that. Brazil is very important to me. It's something, it's one of my favorite growing up with those records. Again, the Cogmello records, all that stuff. I grew up with that stuff too, and I want to see all the pen pals from many years that I still keep contact with. Would be great. As far as playing shows, otherwise we're playing, man. We're out, we're playing. We have to get back to it, man. I don't know how bad and crazy it is there. It's still very catchy, contagious here. People are sick now from it, but it's something now. It's becoming like a cold or a flu where it's just going to be part of every year. You're going to say, oh man, my buddy's got the flu, or my buddy's got a cold, or my buddy's got the COVID. I think it's so fresh and so many people got sick and died from it that, it's right now the word comes off less so this year than the last 2 years, but comes almost like cancer. It's a scary word to most, but people are letting up now somewhat. And it is what it is. We got to go play. We got to go have fun. We got to roll on, man. I mean, you live. If you're not living, you're not living. And we may be deceased, but we're alive, man. And yes, we will make it to Brazil. We must. I promise you, I am not talking out of my ass or my sheep's ass. And thanks to everybody that's watching or anything for support. Years of it, an hour of it, whatever. We definitely appreciate you. We're all in this together, man. And the underground is where it's at, man. Real music and real good friends, man. That's what it's about. Stay safe, stay wild, stay yourself.
Yeah, great. Ok, falando dos planos aí, né? Ele realmente tem planos de vir tocar no Brasil, tá? O Deceased está tocando ainda, né? O nome da banda é Deceased, mas eles ainda estão vivos e tocando, tá? Então, tipo, para quem não sabe, é falecido o nome da banda, tá? Então, o que acontece é que eles estão fazendo esses shows, né? Estão indo bem, assim, o pessoal tá saindo agora, então tá voltando à rotina, assim. Claro que tem gente que tá pegando gripe, tem gente que tá pegando isso, mas é o natural, faz parte, né? Tem gente que tá morrendo de câncer também, né? É a vida, o cara tem que viver, não adianta, né? Tem que fazer
Agradece.
Isso aí. Ele realmente espera vir pro Brasil, porque ele cresceu ouvindo muita coisa do Brasil, coisa da Cogumelo, né? Todo aquele material lançado pela Cogumelo chegava na mão dele por conta de uns correspondentes que ele tinha. Ele realmente espera vir tocar no Brasil e conhecer essa galera, porque ele cresceu ouvindo metal vindo do Brasil, né? Então, para ele é muito importante isso também. E é importante para os fãs do Deceased também ter o Deceased tocando aqui. Então, ele tá vendo isso, e isso vai acontecer logo, né? Assim, esperamos que...
Muito bom.
O Deceased tocando aqui. Então, I'd like you to leave a message for all the fans here in Brazil. I know that we can expect not to see you here. Crazy. But
I was going to say, we have no fans. We have friends. I don't believe in fans. We friends. We're all friends. Yeah. We're all in this together. But nobody's better than anybody else. My side of the stage, your side of the stage, whatever, in the world. But thank you very much. I will get as close as I can to this camera for you. Thank you very much for all your support, everybody. Much love and much respect and much cheers to Brazil. Thank you for all your music, your friendship, and everything. I wish everybody well. And I promise you, we will come to fucking Brazil. I fucking promise you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was an honor to talk to you. Okay, it was a great pleasure to talk to such legends.
I thank all three of you, man. It was fun as hell. You guys are good people, man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you guys know anybody that can help us get over to Brazil, please send them my way. Facebook, whatever the hell they can do. There's always a promoter that wants to do something. We've never been there, so we can be one of those bands that they can say, they've never been here. Let's go, boom, and we're there.
Yeah, for sure. Great.
Muito bom.
Galera, próxima terça-feira, Rick Ross, Massacre, Death, Left to Die, conosco. Sigam o Heavy Culture aí nas redes sociais. Sigam o Deceased nas redes sociais. Thank you very much. King.
Cheers.
We salute you. Christian, obrigado. Ivan, obrigado.
Obrigado, eu.
Galera, até a próxima aí. Sigam firmes. Vejo vocês aí na próxima terça. Abraço.
Nice.